What's up, Blaine? How you doing?
Hey, sister, I'm
Can you hear
doing
me?
good. Yeah,
There I
perfect. Can you
am.
hear me?
Good. Yeah, I can now. I got this new fancy headset, and I don't
I
know
know.
what
I'm
I'm doing.
jealous.
You know, I
I
don't know.
want those.
Yeah,
I want. I got
I
little
got it on
cheapies.
clearance. Well,
You
this
didn't
was
buy
on
me a pair?
clearance, and I was
Oh,
like,
okay, okay. Why don't you get me a pair?
maybe maybe I could get you a pair. Maybe I could go back because they're on clearance,
Hell
and I
yeah!
could give it to you at the Fitzpatrick.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So the Fitzpatrick is the story of the night, right? We're going to talk about the
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick because it is bad to the bone and it's going to be star studded. Did you know that Lynn Monet is coming and she was featured on the Gaia channel? She's
Right
been on
on.
Coast to Coast too.
Mm.
Yeah,
She just
um
she just straight up famous.
she is and she's so pretty.
I gotta
I
tell
love
you,
her to death.
you wished me a happy birthday, and I appreciated that. Actually, I
Yeah,
appreciate
I
all the
love you,
birthday
buddy.
wishes I got. So y'all made my whole day. Thank you.
You are so cool. So we also have Flip Searles. Searles.
That
Searles.
sounds about right to me.
Searles.
Sarah's,
Searles?
Sarah's.
No, I can't do it. I'm
No,
at a brain I'm having a brain fart is what it is.
I hate when that
But,
happens.
he's gonna be there and he's crazy. He's fun, he's crazy. He was the director of Paranormal After Party back in 2013.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, he's a lot
What
of
a trip.
fun, and he's right
Yeah,
here in South Carolina, and
sweet.
going to he's going to some of my usual haunts, pun intended. So he's gonna be there. You're gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. Gwen's gonna be. Speaking of Gwen, here she comes. There's my sis. Hey,
Hey,
Gwen.
Hi, producer.
hey, how are you guys doing?
So we're doing
And now
great.
she's frozen.
Yeah, we're just excited
I'm
about the
awesome.
Fitzpatrick. The
Yes.
Fitzpatrick is gonna be so great. We also have Jess Elliott, and she is a,
Oh, Jess is
publisher.
awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, she's, in the national committee for Writers Guild or something like that. It's crazy. I'm gonna have her on, and she can straighten me out on that title. But, she was very instrumental on, getting me pointed in the right direction for Family Spirit,
Yeah.
the origins of my first book. I was so scared, and it was, COVID lockdown. So, I had Mama Jenny and Mom here, and we had time to ourselves. And Matt, he came in there in the office with me. I put a little bed in there, and it had a massage thing he could lay down, on that little antique
Nice.
bed and get a massage and help dictate to me our experiences. So it really was a family effort.
Right on.
I was so scared. Like, who the heck am I to try to write this thing?
And now y'all have 8 total, I think it
I
is. I had 8.
know, I
Yeah.
know. Let's bring Lynn on. I want to tell Lynn about it. Hey, Lynn.
Hi,
Hi, Lynn.
everybody.
Hey,
Hi.
sweetheart.
I've been looking so forward to this. Thank you so much for having me on.
Me
Happy birthday,
too.
Blaine. Yeah,
I'm
this
so
is great. And
Yes,
of
happy
course, you look
birthday.
like Princess Layla. We were talking about that in the back with your fancy ear
Yes.
thingies. So, yes, there you go. Anyway, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, thank you. Shane McLean is in chat, and he has a show coming on All Access Network Television. Lisa, if you're interested, you can talk to the producer Gwen here.
Yep.
Producer Gwen, that's her name,
Oh,
producer
are you
Gwen.
talking?
Mr. Gwen.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Who? Yes, you.
I'm Lynn.
What did I
What did
say?
she?
Lisa.
I thought she said, okay.
I don't know what I said.
No,
Who
that's okay.
knows? I told you
I'm
I'm
sorry.
having brain farts today.
You're fine.
You
I
need
don't
some
know.
coffee.
I did.
I'm sorry.
I've got my juice. I got juice, but let's bring Christopher in too. Christopher,
Hello.
this is
Hey, Chris.
Lynn
Hi,
Monet.
Christopher. It's nice to meet you.
Hello, Lynn.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Before I thought you were talking to one of them, so I'm like, was she talking to me? So anyway, sorry.
I
It's
don't
all
know what
good.
I said. I probably did call you Lisa. Hang around long enough, and I'll have to go through the whole
That's
roll call
okay.
with all my kids and my husband and all my
Yeah,
friends, and it'll
Happy
hit me
birthday,
eventually.
Blaine.
I
Oh,
answered
thank you.
all of it. My sister's name is Lisa, so I'm good. I'll answer
Oh,
that
Oh,
one
not
too.
right on.
cool.
Hey,
Yeah.
like if you don't call me, late for supper, I'm good. So
There you go. There we go. We got everybody in the house. So,
Woohoo!
Lynn, tell us a bit about what it was like filming with the Gaia channel. What did you talk about?
Oh my goodness. Talk about having my queen bee moment.
nice.
They definitely dotted all of the I's and crossed all of the T's. I actually had a Lexus, brand new Lexus, and a driver to tote me around everywhere that I wanted to go. I kid you not. My
Oh
hotel
my
room
goodness.
had a giant bathtub, one of those kind the water comes up to your eyeballs.
Oh,
I like
separate
that.
shower. So I wore that
Yeah.
bathtub out. I think in the whole week I was in there like 4 times. It was wonderful. They paid for everything. They had a makeup artist, a person to do my hair, take me to the set and back and forth. So I can officially say that I had my queen bee moment. I actually had a couple of people ask me for my autograph because they kept seeing this car coming to pick me up with a driver. So they thought I was somebody famous. And then of course I got off the plane and got in my Toyota and drove home. So the reality hit. So, I mean, I'm nothing fancy over here, but we talked about all of my books. He wanted to focus more on the last 2. I also have another one coming out in a couple of weeks around Halloween. That's also a scary story. What I have Omnipresent, which started off with a book about a house that was so haunted, I was never able to move into it. It was that bad. People were getting clawed, bite marks, the whole 9 yards. And then I went ahead and I decided to make it a series. So it's going to end up being 5 books in the series. The second book is out, Omnipresent, What Happened Next, which talks about what happened next. I got a hold of the people that sold me the house and found out what was happening to their children before they sold it to me. And also I did a stint through, I went back to college to further my nursing degree. I've been a nurse for 40 years. 17 of which has been in end-of-life care. I'm going to be 62 in May. So,
and you make it look
You
good,
don't
girl.
look
No, not at all.
So, well, thank you. It's good lighting, trust me, and makeup. But anyway, I'm currently writing the 3rd book in the Omnipresent series. Actually, it's the one in editing that's going to be coming out, and it's called 111 Beckadon Drive. And just to back up a little bit, that second book, What Happened Next, also talks about my ability. I have the gift of second sight. I saw attachments on people that had schizophrenia and addiction in the mental health facilities that I had to go into. Doing my psych class, I had to go into mental facilities.
Mhm.
So I've been able to help some people with that. The 3rd book that's coming out any moment is Omnipresent 111 Beckadon Drive, which is a story based on a townhouse that I jumped into without checking it out. It turned out that it had a ghost that was going from townhouse to townhouse, pulling down women's underwear and crawling in bed with them and in the middle of the night. And he was groping men too. So he wasn't particular.
Okay.
The book that I'm
Equal
currently...
opportunity offender. I got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. In the interim of that, I wrote Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End, which is about death, dying, and afterlife. It's a beautiful story, hopefully to take the stigma of death and dying away. Being an end-of-life care nurse, I was able to see some very, very beautiful things. At the end of life, I see people leave their bodies. I've been able to hear some of the messages that come back with the people that are rallying, like babies that aren't born and things like that are so beautiful.
Mhm.
I'm currently writing Omnipresent Gnome, Gnome, Place Like Home, based on a house that I just inherited of my sister's that is enchanted. If you want to do,
Oh!
I have had paranormal groups out here. It has been verified, but it is enchanted because it has fae on the property. I
Yeah.
kid you not.
I knew
So
you
it's a
do.
whole, so it's a whole
Hold
different
up.
ball game.
Say it
It's a whole-
again. It's got a what on the what? Say it
It
again.
has a fae, F-A-E,
Yes.
on the
That's
property.
what I thought you said.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
what you said.
gosh.
And you were
Yeah,
correct.
they look like ghosts when you see them, but they look like they are mistaken for children. As a matter of fact, when I went to the Gettysburg, the bash recently, a couple of people walked past my table and they said, "You've got a little boy following you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And then one of them came over, Brian Bowden, who has seen him in person. actually came over and he says, Bob's sitting there in that chair, and there's Bob sitting with his little feet moving like windshield wipers, and just grinning from ear to ear. So there's a beautiful story behind. Well, it starts out kind of bad because his name for me. Am I allowed to say cuss words on this show?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Okay, his name for me was fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, real fast.
Love it.
Wow.
Love it.
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
wow.
So fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. So that was my name at first when we realized. If I could, I'll share a little bit of this with you because it's an interesting story. When I inherited my sister's house, my sister for years thought that the house was haunted. So she kept trying to do things to protect herself in the house, and it just didn't seem to work. My sister passed away unexpectedly, and my other sister came. I have a half sister. Everybody in my immediate family, there are 6 of us, have all passed away but me. However, I have a half sister that was my father's daughter from another marriage. And she flew in to help me go through the papers and things like that. And she was sleeping upstairs in my sister's room. And I hear her in the middle of the night. She's humming hymns and she's saying these prayers out loud. And I'm like, well, that's a little weird because it went on for like an hour. And I'm like, but maybe that's the ritual she does before she goes to sleep. So I wasn't going to say anything. I just thought it was a little weird. So the next morning she wakes up and I asked her, I said, did you sleep okay? And she said, well, something woke me up after I'd fallen asleep. And because we all have our beliefs about spirits, we don't get freaked out when, we see something walk across the room. She said that there were these faces like in a wreath floating over her head of the bed. And she started singing the hymns and praying for them to go away, and they weren't leaving. And they finally left after about an hour. So going forward, my son and I were in the house. After we had cleared the house, when I clear houses, I use a fire component. I give the spirits opportunity to leave, and then the fire sucks in oxygen, also sucks the spirits into the pan, and they get stuck in something sticky, and then you dispose of it properly. So I did that, cleared the house. And there was still this little thing in the house that was just, he would put his face between the balusters, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Type thing.
Oh,
and
Lord.
So I called Brian Bowden and I called let's see, I just forgot her last name. I can't believe it, but a friend of ours named Jim that also does remote viewing. One was in Florida, one was in South Carolina, the house was in Louisiana. Both of them were telling me that there was this thing that lived under the house in the dirt, and that he was coming up into the house through the stairwell because there was something in the 3rd bedroom that he wanted. So that evening, well, even before that happened, the night before, my son and I were standing in the hallway. My son's in the doorway of the master bedroom. I'm in the doorway of the hallway bathroom. And all of a sudden, I see this little thing come out of the 3rd bedroom, and it walks past me, goes past my son. And I remember thinking, gosh, that thing looks just like the banker on Harry Potter. Blocky head.
Lord.
That thing, blocky head. Yeah, ears that went up and backwards that were high. And I didn't say anything, but I'm just thinking it. And my son says to me, did you just see Hogwarts go by?
Hogwarts.
And I said, yes. And then he came back out of the room, passed both of us again, and then came to the 3rd bedroom, and then came out of that 3rd bedroom and passed us again. But on the 3rd time, he left an ectoplasmic misting in the hallway that had the faces of the wreath that my sister had seen hovering over her bed. So apparently the little guy was standing next to the bed. And of course, since he was short, she couldn't see him. But he would carry them around like bobbing balloons. And I made the mistake of thinking that he was holding them prisoner for his own entertainment, these spirits. And I was planning on releasing them. But it turned out that he was actually holding them for protection. And since then, they've been crossed over. He's surrendered them. And gladly, he's glad not to have that burden anymore that he's been having to carry it around for so long. So once we found out what it was, we were told, listen, you've got 2 choices. You can either get out because he's not going anywhere. And this happens too a lot of times when you're clearing people's houses and something just doesn't leave. It might not be a ghost. And if it's a fae or elemental, they're not leaving. And I had never, ever experienced anything like this in my life. I had no experience with fae and elementals. It was not my forte. Paranormal was, but I got thrown into this by accident. And so I've been learning a lot of things since. So we were told that my son and I were told we had to finish the house, getting some things out of the house, and that we didn't want him coming in the house because he was doing mean things to us. He was making us tired. He was flinging invisible vines around us. We would get itchy. So, I forgot about the rock. This is a very important piece. When Brian Bowden and Jim told us about something being in the third bedroom, I'm like, oh my God, I know what it is. Because when my sister had been there, we were in that bedroom going through papers, and there was this ugly rock. It was like a heart-shaped rock, very nondescript, about as big as my hand, but just an ugly rock. There was nothing beautiful. It wasn't sparkly. It was dirty looking. And I picked it up to throw it away. And the energy that was in this rock raced up my arm and into my mouth. I mean, I could feel it in my teeth. It was hot, and I dropped it immediately. And so and I'm like, well, I'm not touching that again. We'll just kind of leave that there until last, So when they mentioned that there was something in that third bedroom, I knew immediately what it was. It had to have been that rock. So the next day, I had my son take the rock outside. And as my son's leaving to go out the front door, this little being is behind him, flinging vines around his legs to slow him down and stop him because he had his rock. Yeah. We put the rock in the back of the house in an area where nobody would bother it. And we made a deal with him. We said, we didn't want him in the house bothering us while we were looking through things. And they like alcohol. They like tobacco. They love baked goods. They love treats. He especially loves beignets and things like that. So we told him, okay, we've got this chocolate liqueur. We've got, my son took out a cigarette, and we're like, we'll give you these if you stay out of the house. We're leaving the day after tomorrow. So he did his part. He did try to peek in the door a couple of times, and we're like, hey, and he would go back out. And the people that have come to the house, why can't I remember Melissa and Jim's last name? Anyway, he actually saw him. Brian Bowden has actually seen him with his own eyes. So anyway, the day was Monday that we were supposed to leave. And it turned out that it was a holiday, and we noticed that there was a leak in a sink upstairs. So I couldn't leave without getting a plumber to come and fix the leak, or there would have been a huge hole in the first floor ceiling if I had left it. So we found a plumber to come, but he wasn't coming until that evening. And my son Austin and I decided to go and get something to eat. Now, after all, we're in Louisiana. They've got great, gumbo and stuff like that. So we wanted to taste some of that while we were there. So we left and we came back. When we came back, you could hear, we call him Bob. The Bob name just on another track was because usually they don't give you their name. But when he finally did give us his name, it was blah, 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 like Rumpelstiltskin, something that we couldn't pronounce or remember. So it's like, look, can I call you like Tim or Jim or Bob? And he says, Bob is fine. So we call him Bob. So you could hear Bob coming up from the back of the house, grumbling under his breath, and it sounded like the Tasmanian devil. That yeah, literally coming forward to us. And I said to my son, oh my God, we forgot to tell Bob that we were staying an extra day, because we told him that once we left, he could come back in the house. And so we had to give him his treats that we promised, and then offered some more and said, look, if we're leaving tomorrow, we'll leave you some beignets. We had fresh beignets in the kitchen. We'll leave you some beignets when we leave tomorrow if you stay out of the house. Leave us alone. And then you can come back in the house. So that night, my son was loading up my sister's truck that I was going to drive from Louisiana back to South Carolina. And he was carrying some heavy things. And all of a sudden, I hear all of these obscenities being yelled out. And I thought that my son had dropped something or hurt himself lifting these heavy items onto the truck by himself. So I run to the door. I open the door, and there he is in my face. And I'm like, what happened? Are you okay? And he says, what do you mean? He says, yeah, I'm fine. I said, well, why were you yelling out obscenities? He says, that wasn't me. And I said, well, did you hear that? And he said, no. The next morning, when we were supposed to be leaving, my son's battery was dead. So he charged it off of my truck and was leaving it run so that it would charge up a little bit. And then he was inside of the truck hooking up my cell phone so that I could use the GPS on the way home. And all of a sudden, I'm standing on the front porch and I again hear, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And these obscenities that are being screamed out. And I walked forward and I thought again, maybe it was Austin. So I went forward and I went to the door. It was open. And I said, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. I said, was that you yelling out obscenities? And he said, no. And then we both hear, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And it was that little,
Wow.
I kid you not, the elemental was actually standing in the doorway of the shed. And he wanted to make sure that we weren't leaving without leaving him his treat, what we promised.
Oh
Because
my
he
God.
thought we were leaving. So we ended up having to leave the treat. But since then, he has become such a asset. I mean, he's got this beautiful childlike wonder about him that so many humans have lost. And he tells so many things. He explained that about the rock. The rock was basically his precious. It was like a child to him. So he was doing mean things to my sister and any of the humans that came into the house because they kidnapped his rock.
Oh, hell.
And so he started to tell us that the rock he loved stories. And he talked about how the rock would tell him stories of ancient times. And that it also had something special about it that he couldn't share with humans quite yet then. And he was so happy to get the rock back. And so I frequently bring him natural chips of like turquoise from Mexico. And I got him something else from Madagascar and all over so that they can bring him stories. But he takes them and he puts them strategically in the yard so that it looks like an energetic quilt, only triangular. So they're vortexes with gold and silver lines and blue lines crossing, so that other things have been coming in. So night fae and things like that. But he has told me, for one thing, he told me that if you expectorate on a seed before you plant it, that the seed will analyze your saliva, and anything that you have a deficit in, when you plant it, the plant will grow with that item, so that when you eat it, you balance yourself out because now you're getting all the nutrients that you need. So he told me that. He also told me that there are mermaids, that mermaids turn into whales. Their physical part, whenever they want to be seen physically, that they are whales. He told me about these beautiful crystalline cities in the water that have people like us living inside of them, and that they maintain the walls of the water with their minds, that's how powerful their minds are. He's talked about the bioluminescent beaches that the night fae live on, and they're like beehive looking things that stick up in the ground. And he's told me so many. We even had a conversation recently. We're in the midst of a conversation about Jesus. So this has been interesting too. And the thing about the fae is traditional religion have demonized them so much because originally they were followers of Lucifer, when Lucifer was a good angel in heaven. He was an extremely intelligent angel of music. And then he decided to take things in his own hands and he got kicked out. Well, the fae followed him when he got kicked out, not fully realizing what that meant. They kind of blindly went along with him. And now they're kind of separating from that, coming back more in to start helping humans again. There's a period of time that we're going through. I think everybody's been feeling it, where some of the collective consciousness has been coming together and it's elevating, and some of the filters that are between the dimensions and between the lives paralleling ours is starting to thin. So you'll be able to see the elementals in the fae more. And I was actually asked on that third book, Omnipresent, No Place Like Home, to write 2 additional books in order to bridge the gap between the fae and the humans. And I even argued for a minute.
Wonderful.
I'm like, I don't know if you want to do that. I don't know if the humans are ready or not. I'm like, they might turn you into like a genie in the bottle kind of thing, and have expectations and demands. And I'm like, I don't think they're ready. And I was told that I needed to do it anyway. And that those who were not going to be like that would be the ones that would be rewarded with the ability to see.
Yep.
So I see those.
So,
I see dead people. I see aliens, Bigfoot. I mean, you name it. I see it all.
I'm with you.
Luna, stop it. my dog is trying to eat my desk. Uh,
That's okay. My dog was
when
just in here a few
I
minutes ago.
when
That
I
big head
said
dog.
say that, yeah, when I said say that again, when you said Faye,
Mhm.
she was sucking on my toe, and it was a big shock, and I missed it. So I was like,
That's okay.
she's so funny. She's a little
She's got a
Frenchie,
foot
and
fetish. Oh,
she
those are so
does.
cute.
She got
Linda,
everything
don't do it.
fetish.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
funny.
So,
Yeah.
Jess Elliott, an author that will be at the Fitzpatrick, wants to know if Bob likes seashells because she has some she would like to gift him
Oh.
You know what?
at the Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I actually went to Florida and went snorkeling. And every time I would close my eyes and kind of radiate love out of my heart, I would open my eyes and there would be a beautiful shell just laying there, like with no dents or holes or anything. I
Hmm.
kid you not. So
Yep.
I've got some, I haven't given them to them yet, but if you would like to bring some shells, I'm sure that he would be very happy with them because shells are also jewels of the sea. So
Yes.
they're kind of like they're rocks. So absolutely, if you want to bring some for him, I'm sure that he would really appreciate it. But yeah, people sometimes they ask me how I see things. I have the gift of second sight. I've had it ever since I was a little girl. I remember we lived 3 short blocks behind a hospital that was connected to a nursing home, which now they call skilled facilities, but back then they were called nursing homes. So it was commonplace for me and my siblings to see ghosts walking through the house. I mean, to us, it was
Okay.
like there's a toaster, there's a door, there's a dead person. So
Yep.
we didn't have that fear of them, so to speak. And there was one time in particular, and some of you may have already heard this, but my brother and I were in my parents' bedroom, and I was in my mother's jewelry box putting on her earrings and trying on her stuff, and my brother was on the terrazzo floor playing with his cars. And all of a sudden, I turned to show my brother how glamorous I had made myself. And he was fixated on a corner of the room. And so I turned to look at to see what he was looking at. And there was a misting, which, of course, being older, now I've learned that that's a portal, that it's ectoplasm that forms as a portal. But as a kid, I didn't know it was just this misting. And all of a sudden, my son's best friend, John, stepped in, mother, father, and brother. And they're all standing there smiling at us in this mist. Well, my brother got up and ran out calling for my mom. I got up, went in the other direction calling for my mom. And my brother found her first and he's like, Mom, John's here and his family. And she's like, I didn't even hear anybody knock. And he says, and they're in your bedroom. And she says, they're in my bedroom. Who let them in my bedroom? So she's coming from the laundry room, straightening herself, going into the bedroom to usher these people out of her room into the living room. And of course, when she got into the room, there was nothing there. And I came in behind them and I kept my mouth shut because he got in trouble and I didn't want to get in trouble too. So it was the week of spring break, and it was the Monday, the very next day. Well, it was the very next day was Monday where the kids returned to school. And John and his family had gone to Disney World or something in Florida, something like that. So my brother was on the bus. Normally he sat with John on the bus and John wasn't there. So he figured that he'd see him in the classroom because their tables were pushed together and they had chairs at their tables that they sat side by side. And when he got to school, John wasn't there either. And after they said the Pledge of Allegiance and the announcements were made, the teacher got up and stood in the front of the class and said that John would no longer be at school because he and his entire family perished in an auto accident the day before. And it
Oh,
Oh my
happened
God.
that day that we saw him. It was like he was coming to say goodbye.
he was.
So, yes, he was. So to me, I've always been able to see, I see things very clearly out of my peripheral vision. I can see them as plain as I can see you.
Mm-hmm.
When they're in front of me, a little bit of a distance, they kind of look opaque, like when you're in a mall parking lot daytime and you're walking into a JCPenney and they've got those big plate glass windows and you see your reflection. Ghosts look like that to me from a distance. And when they're close up, I can sometimes see a bottom half, but usually I see this wavering, waffling, energetic thing to the air, which kind of looks like gas fumes or hot vapors coming off of a road. And because we're energy, everything about us is energy. And, if anybody wants to take it from a scientific angle instead of a spiritual one, energy can't be created or destroyed. So
Nope.
when we leave our bodies, we do not die. People, we do not die. Okay? We don't. We just go on, and they're still around you all of the time. They can hear you talking. They're there for events, like, oh, well, my son's graduation or my daughter's wedding or the baby that just came. They are there for all of that. They're preparing to come for all of that even before you know that you're going to plan for it.
Yeah.
So they are there for all of that. And if people, the book that I wrote about Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End, to take the stigma of death and dying away, if people could understand that people really don't die and they're basically just leaving in another form to go on an amazing vacation, and you're going to catch up with them later. You will see them again. You'll see your pets again. You'll see your parents again, your siblings again. And the thing about pets that is funny is everybody's like, oh, well, am I going to see my German Shepherd again or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, you will, but don't be surprised, because not only will you see your pets from this lifetime, you'll see your pets from every previous lifetime. So don't be surprised if you've got an elephant that runs up to give you a hug because you lived in India once and you had a pet elephant. But you will recognize them once you cross over. Here, you're expecting a German Shepherd and you're getting the first one to meet you as an elephant. So,
Sweet.
they need to, to understand that too, to expect to see everything. So, yeah.
Well,
so go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to tell you how funny my dad was when he passed. He came back through and goes, where's all these damn people y'all said is going to be here? All I see is these damn lights. I said, Dad, that's them. Go up to them. They will show themselves. And about 4 days later, he goes, I guess you was right, wouldn't you? I was like, yeah, Dad, I was very right, but you should have listened to me before that I told you what to look for.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
I love that story. I was just going to say, Tracy Rizzo says, yes, we just leave our shell. And I wanted to show you this because I had just loaded it. That's the top image is a graph of the first 9 harmonics of a harmonic series. And the bottom is the X-ray of the structure of a conch shell.
Mm-hmm.
And look how they look the same. Yes. So while we're talking about shells and it just keeps going, I had to pop that in there.
Absolutely. And on another note, our bodies are like our shells that we kind of leave behind. And we go with, and I'm really glad that you brought that up about your relative, because working in the medical field, anytime somebody's hallucinating, whether it's with schizophrenia or somebody that's getting ready to pass, the medical field runs for the drugs because they want to pump them full of things to shut them up, because nobody's comfortable with them talking about things that nobody else can see. And to me, this is very sad. And of course, I'm now speaking against it because I'm old enough to retire. And if they want to take my license away, I don't care. I'll just retire earlier. So, but the thing is that so many things have occurred that I have seen that totally annihilate what they're saying. And the thing is too, is people have learned to become so uncomfortable with death that even if a person who's getting ready to pass is talking about a relative in the room that they know themselves, they're still creeped out by it and they run to get the nurse for the drugs and stuff. I have for instance, about a blind lady, if you'd like to hear about that.
Yes, please.
Okay. I had a lady, I call her Edna in my book. She had been blind for 10 years. Couldn't see anything, shadows, nothing, totally blind. And she was on my unit. She'd been there for about 2 weeks and she was actively transitioning. And her son and daughter come to the nurse's station and they say to me, Mom's talking to people in the room that aren't there. I said, okay, I kind of expected that. I didn't say that to them. I'm thinking that. And I'm like, well, why don't I walk down to your mom's room with you and see if I can straighten her pillow or adjust her, make sure she's comfortable, if I can help her be more comfortable. And really, I was trying to comfort them because they were creeped out by the fact that that she's talking about a dead person in the room. So when we get to the room, she's sitting at a slant and she's smiling and she's reaching up into the sky like something very delicate is being handed to her, like a snowflake or something, because she was being very careful with whatever it was and very happy with whatever it was. And I said to her in the right, I said, Edna, who's here? And she says, George. Well, her daughter turned as white as a sheet and had to sit down. And she's like, well, George is my father. My father passed away X amount of years ago. And then Edna pipes up and she says, and he's glad that you're taking good care of Pixie. Pixie was Edna's poodle. When George died, the son had to take possession of Pixie the poodle because Edna, being blind, couldn't care for the dog anymore. And the son told me the story, and the dog was still alive. It was an elderly dog, like 15 or 16 years old, but it was still alive at that time. So he said to me, he said, well, do you think that my mom's hallucinating? And of course, in a professional setting, I can't come out and say, no, I think your dad's here, and your mom's visiting with your dad, because when people start to pass the filters he faced, so they're able to hear the telepathy of the spirit world as well as hear the physical speech on the physical end. So I said to him, I said, do you mind if I try something? And he said, okay. And I said, I'm not trying to change your belief system, but I've been a nurse for many, many years, a lot of years in end-of-life care. And I have, believed that the loved ones do come in to visit with their loved ones and help them get ready to transition
I'm so glad
over
you
at the
said
time.
that. Thank you so much for saying that.
They
Lee,
do,
Sorry.
So
Go ahead,
anyway,
Lynn.
okay. So even if there's nobody in the room, you never die alone. But anyway, so I said to Edna, I said to the guy, can I try something? He said, okay. And I said, Edna, can I ask George a question? And she nodded her head, yes. And I said, George, what color is your son's shirt? And Edna said, yellow. George had, because Edna couldn't see anything, George had to tell her what color it was. So in that moment, the son got it and realized that the father was actually there because he was wearing a yellow Ralph Lauren polo shirt, is what he had on. And so the thing is a lot of times people miss this very special time when loved ones are rallying, where they're able to hear the other side and the physical side. I mean, how many times, if you want to ask Uncle Bob what he did with the clock, this is your time. And through the person transitioning that can hear the telepathy, they can respond. However, you got to ask one question at a time and make sure that the person is actually in the room. But so many times in the medical field, people, they're not comfortable with having a dead person in the room. So they do want the pills. But the truth of the matter is that even when these people are hyped up on these medication for hallucinations, if it's loved ones and spirits that they're still seeing them. It doesn't take it away. No. I had a lady named Abigail, and she and her husband had come to the unit that I was working on, and they came because his health was failing. And it just so happened that she slipped and fell and fractured her hip and ended up on my unit. And we built a rapport. She had been there a while through physical therapy and everything. And so there was one night that I came in, and she said to me, she says, Lynn, do you think I'm crazy? And I was teasing her because we had this report. I'm like, define crazy. And of course, I'm teasing her. And she's like, no, really, crazy. And I said, well, no, of course not. Why would you say something like that? And she said, well, I see my parents. And I know that my parents have been dead for a long time, but I see them and it makes me happy. She said, but now the doctor wants to order medication for me in order for me not to see, he says that I'm hallucinating, not to see hallucinations anymore. And I want to continue to see my parents. I don't want to not be able to see them anymore. Yeah.
Oh, what a mess.
Yeah. So I told her in that moment, I said, well, I heard first of all in report that you're going home in the morning. So that's a good thing. And secondly, as your advocate, you can refuse. Just because a medication's been ordered for you, if you do not want to take it, you can refuse and you do not have to take it. And of course, she was happy with that. And she ended up leaving and going home. But the thing is there's a part of another story where she came back onto the unit. And if you'd like me to share that, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay. There was a day I worked the midnight shift on the weekends. I did a Baylor shift where I work 2 12s and I get paid for 40. So I was a single mom home during the week with my kids. And there was one weekday that a friend of mine needed a day off. So I volunteered to work her day shift for her so she could take off. And the thing about it is when Edna came back, not only was she talking about seeing her parents, she was also talking about seeing a woman with a little girl that would come and visit her in her room. And she would try to sneak cookies and cakes from the dining room to her room to give to the little girl and the lady. And this was creating a bug problem. So we had to put a stop to her, hauling food back to her room. And so, this particular day I was working and all the residents were back in their rooms and I was pushing my treatment cart down the hallway. And I remember passing Abigail's room on my left-hand side, and she's sitting in a recliner next to a big picture window, and there's an air conditioner underneath, and she's leaning forward with this piece of yellow butterscotch wrapped candy. And there was a little girl and a woman standing in front of her. And I thought to myself, oh, how nice. Abigail's got some visitors today. She didn't have siblings. She was an only child, so she didn't have anybody to come and visit her really except for friends. So I was thrilled to see that she had some friends visiting. And I remember walking forward and I thought to myself, wait a minute. I don't remember those people signing in at the desk. So I backed up and I knocked on the door frame and she invited me in. And when I walked in the room, there was nothing there. I mean, I could see them so clear that the woman had long black hair parted down the middle. She had on a white peasant blouse and a blue jean long skirt. The little girl also black long hair, bangs. She had on a little blue dress with a pinafore, little Mary Jane shoes and the ruffly socks. She was a beautiful little child. So when I walked in, there was nothing there, but yet I can see that waffling to the air right next to me, right here.
So, it's hard. You can't tell at first if they're in the flesh or in the spirit, but that helps, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I don't have that exact view, but I know what you're talking about. Mine's a little different too, and it helps me. I have to look, especially when I'm driving.
Lynn,
yes.
The little girl you were seeing there, her name is Caroline.
I would believe that. She was beautiful.
She was beautiful, about 19 years old.
No, she was a little girl. She looked to be. She only came up to not even waist level on the lady that she was standing in front of him.
She was 5?
Was a little girl. Like 5. Yeah, 5.
I know what I see. She died at the age of 9, but she showed herself at the age of 5 or 6. Okay.
Right. And she could have been 9 because these people were kind of tiny. They were petite in size, even though the woman was fully grown. But the thing is when I walked into the room, Abigail says to me, she says, I want you to meet my friends. Isn't the little girl beautiful? And I said, yes, she is. Abigail just about came out of her chair. She says, can you see them? And I said, yes. And she said, don't tell anybody because they'll think you're crazy and put you on medication. So here's this woman, even though she was on all of these things for hallucinations, she was still seeing the spirits because they weren't hallucinations. And she had the wherewithal to know the difference. So,
nice.
So that's another story that I love to tell too, because it really brings some of it home. It just, and I mean, even in mental facilities, there have been some things that have been heartbreaking, but yet beautiful at the same time. And I'll be happy to share some of those with you too, if you'd like.
That sounds fantastic.
Lee, tell her a story about our hospice lady real quick.
Oh, yes.
Pardon me?
Hospice. We had a patient in hospice. They contacted us because she did not want to have a traditional, I don't know how to describe it, but spiritual leader in her life as she was transitioning. Mm-hmm. She had a different walk. And the only person they could find around there was me, because I had studied these things. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that for her. And so luckily, Blaine came to visit, and he went over there and met her. And Gwen went with me. I was really afraid of having everybody experience that because, she was actively transitioning and she had lots of spiritual gifts. And she wanted to, she was living in a haunted house. Mm-hmm. And she knew everybody that was there. And it was meant to be that way, and so not just anybody could have done that case. And I was doing Reiki on her just for pain, management. And as soon as I was pushing it into her, I watched it go up. Mm-hmm. And it was just she was, like I said, actively transitioning. And she wasn't ready to go at that moment. but the things that we experienced there were unbelievable. Her husband came through. Blaine had to explain some things to me about what he was seeing because I was so enveloped in her that I didn't get the full picture from a distance. And thank God, my husband helped her. Gwen helped her.
Yeah.
There was a bad storm that came through. The power was out. She didn't have her oxygen, and she was going to die in that manner. We piled her up in the car and took her to the hospital.
Oh, how beautiful is that you were
So,
able to share in that.
yeah,
It
I just
was.
wanted
It's
to.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
To me, it's one of my greatest life experiences because helping someone cross over and her husband being there. Her husband was a hoot. I mean, he
He
was
was
like
a
playing like a little. He
Yeah.
was like he poke his head around the corner, see what we're doing, poke his head back, and then he'd
Mhm.
smile like this big Chester crack grin. Then her daughter came through, and the dad was, I think he was getting mad because he was losing his spotlight. He says, "You're taking my spotlight, back off."
Yeah.
That is so
He wanted
funny.
everybody to see him, but he also didn't want her to be disturbed he was there. And then
Yeah.
finally, we had to explain to him, "Now wait a minute. She wants to know you're there. There's no reason for you to be
Yes.
worried." And then he was there. He was Johnny on the spot, holding her hand. She would go to sleep
Hmm.
and wake up talking to him.
Oh, how
Um,
beautiful.
and I would have loved for you to have been my grandmother's nurse.
Oh
Mama
yeah.
Jenny, Mama Jenny passed away 2 years ago yesterday,
Mm.
Oh,
and
wow. I'm sorry.
yeah, thank you. She's she's 100 now, but she was 98 when she transitioned,
Oh, she wants you
and
to know that she's not 100 anymore. She's styling at about 35.
Oh
So,
yeah, she's chilling. She's chilling like a villain. She comes to me quite a lot, and I'm like,
yeah.
Jenny,
She's
what
yeah,
like,
new
oh,
well,
outfit
no,
you
I'm
have on
not.
today?
oh honey, that was
She's
her.
like, I'm looking good. So,
Oh,
That was
yeah.
that was
now
her.
Lynn, the first time I ever met her mother and grandmother, I walked
Mhm.
in their kitchen, and her grandma looked at me and goes, "I think I'll have a tall drink of that right there." And her mom,
She did.
usually mom's like very shy. She goes, "Damn, I'll take a glass of that too."
Oh, wow.
They both were picking on him, and then
Oh,
they're like, "Okay, he's ours. He belongs to
Yep,
us."
yep. I
oh,
belong to
how
them now.
sweet is that?
I
You know,
know.
Yeah,
it's a very special gift to help people cross over. I just recently became a certified death doula, which
I was
people
about
are,
to ask.
yeah, people ask, what is that? And it's like a midwife that helps people exit, where a midwife brings babies in. It's a death midwife that helps people,
Right on.
exit out. And the thing is the rewards that you get from being there and the feeling of the elation and the love that comes through. I mean, there just is not a feeling that can touch it or human
No.
words that can describe it. And some of the messages, they have a good sense of humor on the other side too. And some of the
Oh my
messages
God, did they ever?
that come through. I had this one lady. I was in her room. Her niece was in there. I call her niece April in my book. And this lady starts yelling out. She's like rallying. When they're rallying, they're kind of in and out. They're a period of time where they're hard to rouse. Sometimes their eyes are half masked, their toes are kind of flaccid. Then all of a sudden they brighten up and their toes perk and they're talking. So, and
Hmm.
usually it's like the last time that you hear them talk, because after that, they go on. But I hear this lady and she says to her niece, she says, April, when are you going to have those two baby girls? I want to see those two baby girls before you go home to Jesus. And April spoke up and told her, and she said, well, that's impossible. I've been trying to have children for 25 years and I'm in menopause. I don't know why you're seeing that. She says, no, you have one in each one of your arms. They both have, she said, blonde ringlets, chocolate brown eyes, dimples, and they look just like you. And she said, well, I don't know why you're, saying that. Like I said, it's impossible. I can't have children. I don't have any children. And they continued to kind of argue back and forth. So her aunt passed away, and about 6 months later, her father came through the facility. He had had some surgery. Then the uncle came through and passed away as well. So I got to see her on multiple other occasions. And when she came in at the 6-month point, she had a baby bump. And I saw her and I'm like, I had to ask, I'm like, what do you got in there? And she says, I have got identical twin girls.
Oh wow.
She told me that she was pregnant at the time that her aunt was getting ready to cross over, but she was so early pregnant that she did not know it. And I mean, she was like 45 years old. So she wasn't young. And
Yeah.
so lo and behold, after she had the little girls, I got to see them 2 other times. And one of the times they were about 18 months old. So you know how they have that waddle with that diaper still between their legs and
Oh,
they're walking
yeah.
wide-legged. So their little blonde curls were just bouncing as they went down the hallway, one in each hand of mommy. They had brown eyes, dimples, and they looked just like the mom. So, you know, I mean, they see these things and they come back and
Yep.
they can give messages and beautiful things like that too. That's comforting. That's so comforting.
Yep.
And Lee Triana, I know that your mom just passed, but girl, she's not gone. She stands with
No.
you.
Oh,
Oh,
she's
no,
not
she's
gone.
not.
No, she is not gone. She is not
Yeah.
gone. And she and your grandmother are raising. Yeah, they're having a good time over there.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Yes,
Believe
they
me.
are.
Believe me,
There's
Lynn,
Mama Jenny.
they come to
There's
see
Mama
me
Jenny.
quite a lot, and I'll tell Lee about it. They'll come to me when Lee ain't doing what she's supposed to, and I'll have to get on to her for both of them. It's like, all right, you don't do this right. Mama Jenny's going to chop me up again, and the mama's going to kick my
He's got
butt.
his eyebrows way up, and he's like, "These women are they're gonna get me. They told me to
Yes.
tell you this."
Yes.
That was
She is-
Mama Jenny, and when she was transitioning, she could see spirits in the hospital, and she was crossing them over.
Yes, she was.
Yeah, she was unbelievable.
Oh, that
How
woman.
beautiful.
I've got videos. I know that sounds strange, but nobody would believe what I'm saying right now, and I just
I
had
would.
to. I had to video it.
I would
Yeah,
too.
that's why I said I
Yeah.
wish you
Mhm.
had been there.
Oh,
Mm.
wow. You know, it's such a beautiful thing. And, you know, the funny thing is, too, is at the time of death, you know, sometimes people wait until the last minute. Sometimes they'll leave even a day in advance and just leave the physical body there to finish, or hours, you know, before. But
Yeah.
they always have a choice of crossing over or not. And a lot of times, the ones that don't cross over are the ones that are haunting houses. So, yeah, but I've had
Well, see,
some friends.
my folks were meant to be with me. I said, no, you're
Mhm.
not going anywhere. You're going to stay right here. And so they do go, but they do come back. They'll go to
Right.
Blaine. They've gone to Gwen. They've
Oh, a lot. Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
can
Here's
be-
Mama. Here's Mama.
Yep. She's so beautiful.
Oh,
And you look just like her.
I
Thank
You're
love
her.
her.
You're her mini me. You know, the
Mhm.
thing about it is they, from what my understanding is, my father had a near death experience, and he said that they can be 6 places simultaneously at one time.
Oh, yeah.
So they can be in multiple places. My mother comes through every once in a while with a megaphone. Don't let me forget to tell you about the guy with the Irish brogue, because this is funny. But my mom comes through every once in a while, and I said to her, I said, Mom, don't you ever miss the taste of potato salad or the barbecued ribs or brownies that you used to make? Because, you know, we're human. All we think about is food and, you know, food and money, because you have to
Mhm.
have money to survive, and food is wonderful. We love to eat. So she said to me, she said, well, we don't eat here. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know that you don't eat here. And she said, but we do everything by thought. She said, like, for instance, if we want to go somewhere, we just think of it and we're instantaneously there. And she said, so like in the case of food, if we want to enjoy the flavor of something that we enjoyed on Earth or some other lifetime on some other planet, all that we have to do is think about it, and the sensation and the flavor comes to us as if we're eating it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and I thought that was, I said, well, yeah, Ben and Jerry's and no calories. Boy, wouldn't that be a good thing? But
I
people
like the
talk.
sound of that.
I know, right? I know. They keep all 5 of their senses, and there's always this argument about the smell thing. The thing about, they do have all of their 5 senses. The thing about the smell is that it's not with an olfactory nerve like the way we smell. It's more of a memory recall. So
Yeah.
like the memory recall with the flavor. I mean, if you sit there and think about what fresh popped popcorn or chocolate chip cookies baking in an oven smell like, and you focus on it, you can almost smell it.
I can.
You can?
Right
You can
now.
smell that butter? Yeah, you can smell it. Only theirs
Oh.
is like on steroids. So they're able,
Yes.
you know, to do that sort of thing with that. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, you want me to tell you about the guy that didn't cross over? It was funny as hell.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you a story about cooking real quick before you go to that one, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Yeah.
I love it when spirits come into the house and they're cooking fresh baked goods or bread or the stuff that you should remember as a kid, how well it smelled when you walked in the kitchen. They do this at my house every day. Every
Oh,
day.
wow.
I
You're so
love
lucky.
and I get the smell of like chocolate chip cookies. That's when you said chocolate chip. I smelled it as soon as you said it. And now I got the smell of like baking bread. You can smell the yeast. I can smell the butter cooking on it. Oh, okay. Go ahead, finish your story.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, people at the time of death, they have the option to choose to cross over or not. And as you already know, the ones that don't cross over are usually the ones haunting. The ones that have crossed over can come back. They go back and forth as they please.
Yes.
But the ones that have anchored themselves here are the ones that haunting the houses. And there was this lady, I was in the hallway with my med cart. There was this lady, I was in front of her room that was actively passing. And I see the spirit of this man in the sitting area peeking around this pillar that was in front of me, the sitting area in front of me. And I said to him, I said, hi, and he's kind of looking over his shoulders to see who I'm talking to because, he's been invisible to everybody since forever. He appeared to be like from the 1800s with the way that he was dressed. He didn't appear to be a poor man, but not rich either. He did have on nice clothes, but not fancy clothes like the upper class would have. And I said to him, I said, no, you there. I said, why haven't you crossed over? Because a lot of times when the loved ones start coming in for people that are transitioning, if there are any lingering ghosts that haven't crossed over, they kind of come forward out of curiosity. So he realized that I was talking to him and he kind of came over towards my cart. He had this very heavy Irish brogue. He was a handsome man. He had this reddish brown hair and this full beard and these nice clothes on. And he looked to be about 35. He appeared to have a Swiss cheese look to his abdomen, which to me indicates that he died of either a corrosive disease like cirrhosis of the liver or cancer. When they don't cross over, they still show their cause of death, usually. So I'm looking at this and I said to him, I said, well, why don't, do you want to cross over? This lady here is getting ready to pass. Her loved ones are here. You can hitch a ride basically if you want to. I was trying to tell him that he wouldn't have to go by himself. I said, but I can help you cross over if you'd like to. And he says, me lady, I can't cross over. And I said, well, sure, of course you can. I said, I can help you cross over. I said, I can see you. I said, most people, if they could see you, they'd run screaming, peeing their pants. I said, so this is like a once in a death time deal. I said, where I can help you cross over. And he said, no. He said, I can't cross over. He says, my wife and my mistress are on the other side, and neither one knew about the other.
Love it. That's awesome.
Lynn,
no lie. I had a spirit that wouldn't cross for the same reason, but he had more than just one mistress. He had 10 plus a wife.
My goodness.
And
Oh, wow.
was like,
you can do that.
he said, I would rather spend eternity in hell than have to face all 11 of those women. I said,
No doubt.
I can see this shelter you're not at. He says, how do you do that? I'm not going to run into them. I said, where you're going, you wouldn't even think about them. You'll have all kind of beautiful people to look at, but those 11 you will not see. And he said, I'll take you up on it. And I crossed him over and I watched him come right back. He goes, this is his exact words. I don't see none of them bitches anywhere around here.
Oh,
There you
Lord,
go.
that's funny.
Yeah, it's funny because I tried to tell this guy, I said, you know what? You've been gone so long that they're probably not even up there anymore. They've probably reincarnated, and plus they already know. So a lot of the stuff that's left over with the body is the negative emotions, I said. And so they have a different understanding and they're not going to be mad at you even if you do run across, one of them. But I thought that it was funny that his reason for staying earthbound was because, like you said, with yours too, that they didn't want to get caught. So there are lots of reasons why sometimes they choose to stay earthbound, and that's one of them. So
Well, I think it's hilarious.
That
We have a spirit in our house. His name is Klaus. He owned all of this land back in the 1800s, came straight over from Germany, and probably had 200 or 300 acres of this where our neighborhood is now. And on the opposite side of my living room, I can go in my living room, there is a wall that goes out to the side of the house. Well, he has his still there. And he comes down to our house and runs his still where he can get away from his wife. And my wife's great-great-grandfather, Amos, is here. Both of them are farm guys. So they'll sit there while they're making moonshine. They'll talk about different stuff for farming, like castrating bulls and
wow.
I'm like,
Now
Okay,
that's
now
that's rough.
I have this gift. It's like I don't care how you breed cows. I don't care how you going what you're gonna cut off
Mhm.
them. I don't want to know. But that's the kind of conversation I pick up on them every day.
That is so funny. Yeah, they do. They have great senses of humor over there. It's just when my time comes to pass, I'm not afraid of dying. I did have a late life baby at 46, so I want to at least get her to be 18, and then I'm good to go. I'm not afraid of crossing over. I am. People are, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you don't have any family left here other than your children," and it's like, no, you don't understand. I am grateful that they are on
Yeah,
the other side together and not living in
yeah,
this hell. I am
yeah,
grateful that they are all together, and to me, I don't grieve them because I don't want to anchor them here, for one thing, but I also don't grieve them because to me they're not really gone. They're
no,
still very much around me. They're even around me more now than they were,
oh,
when they were alive. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy for them. I'm happy for
yeah,
them that they are on the other side and that
yeah,
they're
me too.
happy and no longer sick or suffering, or
Yeah,
they're with other loved ones that they haven't seen in forever. My youngest sister was murdered by a jealous boyfriend. So when my mother passed, my youngest sister did come in to help retrieve her. And I was so happy that they were together because it was my youngest sister's turn to have her mom back.
yeah,
We had
Yeah.
had her all this time, and I knew that I would catch up and see them, again at another time. When my time comes, they'll be there and we'll all reunite and go off on our merry way.
yep.
So I'm happy about
Well,
that.
You know what I love, Lynn, is this is Cherokee tradition, most Native Americans, that we have 7 generations of family that are always around you. Mother's side, father's side, they're all there. And you have them from the day before you were born till even after you die. And they're the ones that are going to help guide you. And you might take the place of one of them where they can go ascend to something else. So I always thought that was just like the coolest thing, knowing that. It's like I always see Mama Jenny because they're family to me. And I
Hmm.
see my dad, I see my dad's family. So I get to see them every day that I want to see them. So does Lee, and so does Gwen, everybody. Chris does, and you do. I think it's just
Yeah,
amazing.
it's wonderful too. When my mother passed away, I actually got to glimpse into the other side, and you hear people talking about the colors, and they're no joke. You'd have to have 10 color wheels to match up the beautiful,
Oh, yes.
literally living colors, because when you engage with them, they have a pulsation and an energy about them. They're not just a color on a table or something. You engage with them, you connect with them and their energy. But the thing that was interesting to me is, as people approached and were greeting my mother, and then the crowd kind of thinned out, and she was still left there with my sister and my grandmother who had come in to get her. There were these other beings that walked with the angels that looked like they were from somewhere else. And I'm only
Mhm.
mentioning this because it kind of brings the galactic together with the spiritual. So, you've got people like the Hatfields and the McCoys, and they're separate, but no, it does come together. I'm not talking
Mhm.
about the cryptid, creepy things, they kind of go somewhere else. But there were these big, beautiful beings that walked with the angels. They were very tall, luminous white hair. I don't know what gender they were. It didn't matter, but they were just gorgeous, and they
Yeah.
exuded this beautiful energy about them. And it made me realize in that moment that, with as many stars as there are in the sky that are actual suns for other solar systems, that it would be ignorant on our part to think that we're the only ones. And
Yep.
when those beings' lifetimes end on whatever planetary thing they're living in, they have to have some place to go to. So it was interesting to see these big, beautiful beings that were walking with the angels. They looked to be the level of angels, they just didn't have wings, and they were also helping escort my mother out as she was
Mhm.
as she was leaving to go there. And I thought that was interesting as well. So the
Lynn,
galactic's right, and we're at two
they're actually called gatekeepers. The ones that you saw.
gatekeepers.
That's what they
Okay.
do. They control all the gates. Okay.
Oh
It
wow.
depends on what level that person's having to go to. They'll open the gate for that person to go to this level. And there'll be another gatekeeper down the line when they have to go to another one, another one, and so on. Now they can go through as many as they need to go through, except for one. They can't go back to the same body that they came out of. But yeah, the gatekeepers will escort them with the angels and spirits to get them to the first place that they need to go for their, I call it leveling up for them. Because there's a lot, and they can go back, like you said before, they can go back to any plane of existence except the body they came out of. So yeah, I've talked to spirits so much that they give me all this cool insight stuff that I like to share with people.
Well, I'm glad to know to have a title for them now, because I didn't know what to call them. Since my mom has passed, of course, she talked about the difference between reincarnating and incarnating. All of us that are here are incarnates. We have not reincarnated. For anybody watching that doesn't know what the difference is, people that reincarnate come back in for learning because there are things that they need to finish. Those of us that incarnate volunteer to come in, and we come in to assist. So when our time comes to cross over, like a person that is a reincarnate, they will have their reception, they will go through their life review, and then they usually go into classes to adjust things or to meet things or to learn about things that they didn't meet in that lifetime. There's a hallway along with the Akashic records that have cubbies, and the cubbies that are covered are missed opportunities that you had in life that you missed. When you are an incarnate, you also go through that loving reception. You also go through the life review, but instead of going through classes, you kind of go through a debriefing. Once you finish that debriefing, heaven, for lack of a better word, which you can stay there because there are houses there, it kind of turns into like an airport where you can go down terminals to go, anywhere you want, any galaxy, any place that you want to go. And that's the only way that I know how to describe it. But people can also stay there if they want to. They've got schools and houses similar to what we have here. The thing that was funny is that I learned too, that my mom had told me, is I used to paint, and I probably still could, but I would paint and didn't know why I liked the painting. But the thing is when I would paint, I would envision the painting finished before I would start it. And come to find out that things like that we are doing in this lifetime, we've also already done there. So I have those paintings in my house on the other side, and I'm just creating replicas of them being here, in this lifetime. So I thought that was really interesting too, that those things are there. And
that is fascinating.
Yeah. Isn't that?
Well, time is up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we only do an hour show. Yeah, it just flew by. So I want to thank you, Lynn, for being on the show.
Yes, you're awesome.
Coming to the
thank
Patrick.
you.
We want you to come back. Absolutely.
I would love
that.
So
here is the native blessing for tonight. May the warm winds of heaven blow softly upon your house. May great spirit bless all who enter there. May your moccasins make happy tracks in many snows, and may the rainbow always touch your shoulder. Aho. Thank you for watching Family Spirit International.
Bye, y'all. See y'all next week.
Yep. See you next week.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Looking forward
Good
to
night.
it. Woo-hoo.